I'm the chairman of ITFA, have been now for around 10 years. That is a sort of pro bono thing. I work as head of legal at Sumitomo SMBC Bank in London. I'd like to say that the volatility had come to an end. Of course it hasn't, it continues to be volatile. The world continues to be volatile and uncertain. How do we help in ITFA? We hold events like this where we can reassure each other that actually we're finding a way through. And I think that's a really important part of it, because actually it needs a community to both understand the problems, a community of experts, community of banks, of fintechs, of insurers, to understand what the problem is and actually support each other. So really it's about supporting our community. ITFA itself brings those people together, I think, very effectively. We're also providing, I think, some light and some guidance for how the world might look a little bit in the future, how we can deal with some of those problems through, for example, digital instruments, which reduce complexity, reduce cost. So one of the consequences of volatility is everybody looks at the bottom line. How can we make things more efficient? How can we reduce costs? And ITFA has done on the trade digitalization side a lot of that. Yeah, so I think a really good example of how we're trying to overcome that is our TF initiative, Trade Finance Conference of the Parties. That's specifically about reducing the $2.5 trillion trade finance gap. $2.5 trillion, some people say it's much higher than that, of course. But that's the ADB figure. So we're bringing the MDBs, the DFIs together. They're sort of the bedrock, the core of it. But we're bringing them together with private solution providers, banks, insurers, and various other consultants. So that's a really good example of how we bring everyone together, because that needs really a holistic solution. There was a really good solution that was put forward as part of our emerging leaders competition, which is taking a portion of development funds and using that using it to fund a guarantee mechanism, and that would be done through not just through MDBs, but I think really a large part of it is how can we make SMEs more marketable. So part of the problem is around the available funds, but it's also really the cost and that bank capital, of course. But a lot of it is around the cost of doing business with MDBs. So how can we streamline things like KYC, AML, and again, I think that works through digitalization. There are a lot of really good and better tech. We've published actually in the context of defence spending, where there are a lot of SMEs which are of critical importance, I should say, because they're really the innovative cutting edge of a lot of new military technology. We've put together recently a paper on how we can overcome some of the compliance issues. So that's very important. Make it cheaper and easier to do business with SMEs, and then actually at least some of the money will start to flow. I hope what people go away with is that actually the trade finance industry is really resilient. There are a lot of problems. We had a great presentation from Edward Lee, chief economist at Standard Chartered this morning for the region, and the figures he gave. Right, this is a professional economist. I suppose that the summary would be things aren't too bad. Even now we're dealing with all the uncertainty of where tariffs might go, a lot of geopolitical uncertainty. Banks have been very resilient, continue to be resilient. And I think actually they're very creative. Banks with insurers, it's very important to bring in insurers with the MDB and DFI. They continue to be very resilient. So I've come away with really quite an very upbeat feeling from the first day of it.